joining us. Really excited to talk benefits realization management. It's one of the things we get asked about most often in our day-to-day role. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Louise Gardner. I'm the founder and managing director of Pledge Consulting, and we're really specialist in all things PMO, which of course includes benefits. Many of you I know, some of you I haven't met before. Again, some of you I think will probably know Craig Wilkins. Craig is our resident benefits guru, so not to build you up too much, Craig, but Craig's been working with us for just over 12 months helping our clients with benefits. But Craig and I have known each other for a number of years, and yeah, he's really the man I go to when I have any questions or challenges around benefits. And the other face on the screen there is Peter Major, who you might see, and Pete's our principal consultant, also helping our clients in the benefits space, amongst many others. So the format of this conversation today really is, I thought Craig and I would do a little bit of a Q&A, just around some of the most questions that we get. So we'll do some Q&A, and then for the last probably 10-15 minutes of the session, we'll open up and take questions from the floor. All right, so you ready to go, Craig? So we'll start off with question number 1. So what are the most common requests you get when you're working with our clients and they need help with benefits or benefits realization, any part of the process? What are the common requests that you get?
Well, it's a great question. Ordinarily, we get called in to initiate an assignment because the organizations we work with are being required under some sort of regulation or contractual requirement to be able to evidence benefits realization post-project or program. And they realize in signing of the contract with the vendor or in promising to a business case, when they get a certain way through the project or program, they realize they don't have the skills nor the necessary know-how to actually do benefits realization. They talk about it and they can give it some lip service, but very seldom do they genuinely know how to do it, nor have the tools nor the resources to do it. So that's essentially why we get called in. Another angle is, and due to the scarce resources available, so from a portfolio perspective, we very often get called in by the finance people to say, hey, how do we truly prioritize our future work and existing work by using this magical thing called return on investment? And we go, well, let's show you these the tools that we have in play to start to articulate and quantify your expected value, i.e. benefits, pitted against the risks, which is a really helpful tool, which blows me away because this is essentially what the portfolio officer is supposed to be doing anyway. However, quite often they still don't have the concepts to do benefits management properly. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, when I take myself off mute. Yeah, first one of the day. Yeah, it does very well, thank you. But it also gives me a follow-on thought. So you're brought in by the portfolio office or the finance team, and you start to work with them in a general sense. What kind of understanding about benefits and the benefits process do you usually find when you start that piece of work?
Very little. There is more often than not, as I think I've already mentioned, there's more often than not a conversation and an understanding that benefits need to be in play. But very seldom is there a genuine understanding of what this means. Very often, and when I say very often, I'd say almost always, the conversation steers down the path of, but hang on, benefits start at the end of the program or project, right? And this is where you try not to smoke. And you go, well, no, that's when you start the activities to realize the benefits. However, where's your benefits realization plan? How is this aligned to your business case? How are your benefits aligned to strategy, et cetera, et cetera? And this is the point when the understanding, the lights start to sort of glimmer and start to go on, but the understanding is very low. of discipline benefits in my experience.
Yeah, thanks. One of the things I know I'm asked about an awful lot, and we've talked about, a number of times over the years, is benefits realization management frameworks. Can you share with us what your view is on frameworks? Do you have a particular framework that you like, or one that you think's better than the others?
Great question. Any framework's better than no framework, right? Look, I've seen a number of ad hoc benefits frameworks that are thrown together by some organizations. My personal preference, and this is going to sound like a bit of a cop-out, but my personal preference is the Transport for New South Wales benefits realisation framework and approach. When I say transport, though, they've borrowed it from the New South Wales government and they sort of tweaked it slightly. So therefore, the New South Wales government benefits realisation framework is an extremely useful tool as a base to start any framework, because it is very generic. It doesn't align to anything government as such. I have seen a couple in the private sector, but they're normally an Excel spreadsheet without any backing. So they've got some formulas built into some amazing spreadsheet. When you ask about the resilience of it and what it's aligned to and where is the guidance, etc., there isn't anything. Therefore, to answer your question, do we have anything that's bespoke? Well, yes. The framework that we currently use, Pledge, has taken the number of different frameworks. The Victorian Treasury has a great one.
I'm using the phone.
Sorry, I've just muted it.
So the framework that we use and the guidance and the tools that we use at Pledge are essentially using the government templates to start off with, and we tweak them to make them more pragmatic and more useful rather than just an overarching guide. So we've actually built in guidelines and how-to processes and tools, etc. So it's actually a really good pragmatic tool rather than just a guideline, which is what the New South Wales government framework actually is. It's just a guideline.
I know that I've personally, when I've been working on benefits pieces with clients, I've used the Victorian government have a similar framework, the Queensland government do, and I think the Queensland government framework from memory is based on work done by the UK Cabinet Office. So there's a number of really good publicly available frameworks out there, but the key, as you say, is to not just rely on a piece of paper to tell you what to do. It's more, the intricacies and nuances of the organisation are more important than actually just a diagram. Absolutely.
It's the same with, I'm going to allude to another guide, the Project Management Body of Knowledge. It's a wonderful guide. It's been around for ages. But if you try and run a project, you start at page 1 of the PMBOK, well, good luck. It's the same with a guide provided by one of the states, the government, New South Wales government, or as you say, Victoria, Queensland. They don't tell you how to, they just prescribe a recommendation rather than the actual how-to pragmatic nature of it.
Yeah. So we're talking about different frameworks, and I guess it brings me to some thoughts around, possibly the most prevalent framework that we're all dealing with, or a lot of us are dealing with on a day-to-day basis now, and that's obviously agile methods and frameworks. Do you think the frameworks that you use and the principles that you use every day with clients, Craig, is just as applicable in an agile environment?
What is this agile thing you speak of? Yes, absolutely. There's probably more so than you'd imagine, because with the standard waterfall methodology, the good old-fashioned waterfall, the benefits are expected to pop out and to start being realized at the end of the waterfall life cycle, which in larger projects could be 2, 3, 4 years away. Whereas the way, I'll call it an agile environment, a iterative development life cycle or framework is designed, is we can produce something quicker than you would in the long haul on a waterfall. Therefore, those products that are being produced have a value. So as soon as you've finished a sprint or an iteration or whatever form of agile you're utilizing, you can look at the product that's been developed, you in consultation with the client there and then, and saying, well, is this useful to you? And therefore, what you're doing is you're bringing forward the ability to realize those benefits in a more succinct, practical manner than waiting until the end. What this does mean, though, is you've got to put a lot more effort in. So in the planning and in the business casing, you really need to be quite succinct as to what each release or sprint or development piece will be. Therefore, the product manager in the agile environment needs to truly understand what they're going to be delivering, what the capabilities are that they're going to be providing with each release, hence how that will improve the operationalization of this software. Therefore, you can reap the benefits. So there's a lot, you really have to understand the nuances of what you're delivering to be able to align the benefits. So lots and lots of words. To answer your question, absolutely. It does work in an agile environment very well.
And do you find different pain points, or is it essentially the same per pain points, but just magnified because the life cycle is shorter?
Yeah, it's definitely exasperated because the life cycle is shorter. It means you've got to put a lot more effort in sooner to get the foundations correct. Whereas in a large waterfall project, you've got potentially a year or two to get the foundations in and the realization plan sorted and work through your profiles. Whereas in Agile, you've got a lot less time to get the foundation in. But then it's just a repeat of the foundation, allowing to the capability or the features that are being provided per release, therefore the capability. So yeah, it's a lot more condensed up front.
Yeah, great. So it makes sense, eh?
Louise, can I jump in?
Please, yeah.
So I've just started a short chat with participants about what industries they work in as a precursor to a question that I've got. And I guess a lot of people on the chat work in different levels of government. So there's a number in local government, there's a number in sort of larger government agencies, there's also one from banking. We've got Vic Uni. So my question as it relates to benefits is, obviously benefits are sometimes classified as hard and soft. Sometimes they can be different things depending on the industry and the focus. And, the example in my mind is in a not-for-profit. What are defined as benefits in a non-for-profit are going to be very different, most likely, to the benefits in a financial services organisation. So what are some of the tips and tricks that you provide to people that are maybe not always focused on the hard benefits, but maybe softer benefits or sort of more customer oriented or harder to measure benefits?
That's a great question, but it has a really simple answer. The answer is your benefits realization framework or guidance has very distinct categories, and each category has a definition and a description. So irrelevant of what kind of project you're running and the types of benefits, I would strongly encourage the focus on value. So we start to talk about value rather than benefit. So therefore, something could have a financial value. In the question you just asked, that would be a hard benefit. But we steer away from hard and soft because that's two categories which are way too fluffy. We want to get really focused. And once again, I'll allude to the government frameworks. They go into a lot more detail in what is a financial benefit, an economic benefit. They don't call them hard and soft anymore. Those words have been essentially eradicated from the dictionary of benefits realization. Therefore, focus on the value. And if it just so happens to be a revenue increase or a potentially cutting of costs, sure, that's a hard financial benefit. Those are essentially the easy ones. The difficult ones are the ones that are efficiency based. So trying to understand, come up with what does that really mean to the business? Because just because you save someone 5 minutes a day, you multiply that over the days and the months and the years, means nothing, because you need to know what you're going to do with that 5 minutes once you've saved them 5 minutes of time. It's what you do with that saving that matters, not the fact that you go, oh, we'll save 5 minutes. That's not a benefit. That's more of a statement than anything. So it's about value. It's a great question. It's about categorization and value of each of those categories.
It's a good segue into my next question as well, which stems from my observation that sometimes we'll go in and we'll work with clients who appear to be quite mature in terms of frameworks and level of understanding. But when it actually comes to realized benefits post-project or post-program, nothing really happens. So I'm really keen to understand, what are your strategies to make sure those realizations happen post the end of the project and that handover to BAU is effective?
Yeah, well, BAU is critical. The fact that we get BAU on board is vital. Funny, I got asked this question last week. Someone said, how does change management, now organizational change management, and benefit work together? But like, are they distinct or are they aligned with each other? Well, the answer is they're absolutely aligned, because change is how the business changes from current state to future state. Benefits are what's in it for us once we've got to future state. So in order to make sure, or encourage, you can't make sure of anything, but in order to encourage that the benefits are actually realized post-project and into the program, if there is a program, the benefits realization plan itself has to have a governance model, which is more often than not aligned to the PMO style governance model. And in there you have roles and responsibilities of who owns the benefits, who's accountable to the exec for reporting on these benefits. And all of that has to be absolutely crystal clear, totally transparent, and signed off by the exec and the sponsor and the benefits owners. That benefits realization plan is quite a work of art. It runs in parallel to a project management plan, but it still has a life of its own moving towards handover. Once you get to handover, it's everyone should, the key stakeholders should understand what they're up for and the activities that are required to be conducted by their resources to be able to report on their accountability to benefits. And when you mention this, they look at you like you're an alien, because they go, what do you mean we have to have resources to do stuff? Surely the system should just spit out answers. And we go, yeah, who's reading the system? What metrics are you getting from the system? Who owns the system? Yeah, and so on and so forth. It's not as simple as it sounds.
So if you're faced with a leadership team towards the end of the project, as well as trying to convince them of the need to invest resources in that change piece, if you like, are there some key messages that you give to those people to get their attention and get them to understand how important this is? You know, what strategies have you used with leadership teams to essentially get their attention?
Well, two things. The first bit is the question you asked is, how keen are they? If they have KPIs applied to them that are aligned to them achieving the outcomes and the strategic intent of the project or program, I'm giving them a lifeline to allow them to achieve their KPIs. If there are no KPIs and they are merely a sponsor for sponsor's sake, then good luck. They will not want a bar of this, because they're not being asked to report upwards, and there's no accountability on them to deliver to the business case. So in that instance, I'd say don't bother. You're wasting your time, because once you hand over, it's move on to the next bright shiny thing, and they're not being held to account for the benefits anyway, which is unfortunately fairly common. However, in the government circles, the Treasury is putting a lot of focus at the moment on benefits management when asking for Treasury funding. Therefore, there's accountability. There's true accountability against a business case. And there are KPIs being written against those business cases. Therefore, we're seen as assisting them and aiding them to achieve their KPIs, which is, that's an easy sell. And you get attention that way.
So there's got to be accountability. That's what I'm hearing. It's a nice to have, and you can start the journey without investment and sponsorship and accountability, but you actually can't finish it to any real degree, is what I'm feeling that you're saying.
Not at all. And so one of the things that I have done numerous times in the past is you create a new governance, which is sort of aligned to the existing governance form, but it's called a Benefits Realisation Board. Yeah. And all this board does, and the governance model is created in the Benefits Realisation Plan and the Handover Plan. And it's essentially, these are key stakeholders, these are benefit owners who get together on a frequency set by them, and they discuss the achievement of the benefits. Are they still relevant, and are they being achieved to the business case requirements? And if not, why not? Or it just spurs the conversation, but it makes the accountable people know who's accountable, and therefore they can appoint responsible people because they're accountable. But it seems like it's extra overhead, but it isn't, because it sits in parallel with the existing governance. All you need to do is dedicate X amount of time to a normal governance reporting process, and you can focus on, it becomes a line item in the agenda to focus purely on benefits.
But the whole reason we do projects and make these investments is some kind of gain. So it doesn't seem like a huge stretch to want to make sure you achieve the gain when you spell it out like that.
Exactly. So go figure. Why aren't people doing it? It just doesn't make sense. This is supposed to have been done ever since the introduction of business casing, but it's so badly done. It's quite astounding.
One of the things that's occurred to me when we've been talking a little bit about doing this webinar is the way that the benefits landscape has changed over recent years. So I think back even 5 years, 5-6 years when we first started the business, we were having very few real benefits focused conversations. And with each passing month now, I seem to be having more conversations about benefits. What's your view on kind of that traction and the momentum? Is the landscape changing? What's the future?
Well, I don't know the future. If I knew the future... I
was going to ask you for the lotto numbers for Saturday, if you did a good job.
12, 17, 9. Now, I could talk about the recent history and the trajectory of benefits. I'll go back about 6 or 7 years ago now. I had this epiphany that project management is about the delivery, it's the triple constraints, all these wonderful things that everyone on this forum would absolutely know, love, or hate. But that wasn't true success. It was not success to the business, it was success of delivery. And I was getting so frustrated, because being a pragmatic program/project manager working in both disciplines, there was never this alignment or conversation about true value to the business of success. So I did as much research as I could. I found this bloke called Stephen Jenner. Some of you may have heard of him, who'd been making a lot of noise in the world of benefits back then. Contacted him, we had a few conversations, and I then set upon a journey of going to PMI meetings internationally, literally in numerous countries around the world, talking to them about, hey, why does the PMBOK not talk about benefits? And the answer was, oh, but it's in the program management body. And I went, no, it's supposed to be project, at least understand it. And at that point, I realized that where project management was in the 90s, from a discipline and a upskilling and the tools and the practices and the sort of consistency of discipline, where project management was in the 90s is essentially where benefits is now. It's It's getting better than it was 4 or 5 years ago, again, mainly because of the government push for government money, for public money. However, we're on a swell. The swell hasn't even turned into a wave yet, in my opinion. I do believe that in 15 years from now, we'll be having the same conversation as you would about project management now. It's not about, are you doing project management, what's your methodology? It's how good is your methodology and can we tweak it? I believe the benefits will be there in about 15 years from now, if we keep on this trajectory that we're on.
Yeah, right, interesting. We've got got a good crowd here today, and so there's a lot of interest in benefits, and I'm sure I can't wait to hear some people's questions, but I'm sure people are at different points on that maturity curve. Put yourself in the shoes of somebody who's about to start the benefits journey. What advice would you no, don't say that. What advice would you give the person who's about to start this journey?
Look, it's the same with any journey, right? If you're about to go in and try and make changes in your organization, be realistic, understand which methodologies or processes your business currently utilizes from a portfolio, program, project perspective, understand where you're at, and get skill, understand what benefits management really is. So skill yourself to genuinely understand when it starts, understand the benefits management life cycle, understand. So when you actually start to talk to people, unless you're passionate about doing this, as I was about 7 years ago and still am, I'm actually becoming more and more and more passionate about it the more I learn about it. If you understand the concepts and why you should do it, it's a very easy conversation to have. How to do it's totally different. How to do it's not that easy, but why is good. And if you can get that groundswell happening and you can speak to the right people within your organization about why you need to do it and understand the jargon and be able to see how this fits into your methodology, whichever methodology you're using, that's where I would start. Because you unless you have an innate grasp of the concepts of what benefits is trying to do and the talk and the lingo and the tools available, you're going to struggle and you'll just give up. It's understanding the motivations of why you need it, which will then help you to get to the how.
Yeah. It's good. It brings us on to our training course, of course, that we've recently developed. So because we're really in this space more and more, we've actually developed a 2-day training course. It hasn't been launched yet. We're hoping to hold the first one probably towards the end of August. It'll be a 2-day training course. So we're going to send out a survey post this course, and if anybody's interested in hearing more about that, we'd be very happy to put you on the mailing list for more details on the course. Very briefly, Craig, do you want to just talk about 3 or 4 of the things that people might get out of that, should they choose to go down that training course route? It's more of a workshop, I guess. It's very practical.
Yeah, and look, I think you've nailed in that last statement. It's a workshop. It's a practical, pragmatic workshop rather than a training course that you travel along to get a certification. The certification courses are great because they teach you the fundamentals as per a textbook, and then they teach you how to pass the exam. And at the end of it, you get a certification saying, hey, I'm a benefits realization manager. Then you go along to actually do the job and you realize you don't know anything. What this course will do is you'll come out of this with practical tools. It's a workshop, it's not a training. You get obviously taught some basics of the theory, but you work through a case study all the way from business casing through to the end where you've built a benefits realization plan, you've worked out how to calculate and quantify benefits, you know how to build a governance model. So essentially you can come out of this 2-day workshop and have the fundamentals to go straight in and start to implement. Now, obviously you won't implement the whole thing because it's a rather large change piece. However, it'll give you really good guidance step by step of how to actually do it. We'll talk about the why, but we'll show you how. And if you want to go off and get your certification along the way, well, that's good for you. That's fantastic.
Mm.
But this is where the rubber meets the road, and you can actually do it. It's very much I don't know if you're aware of the 70-20-10 concept in adult education. This is very much the 10 and the 70 all combined, because what we do post the training is we offer a consulting.
I know word, but do you want to explain it to those who might not be?
Okay, so 70-20-10, 10% is your fundamental educational uplift. It's where you sit in a training course, or you watch YouTube videos, or you do a virtual training, whatever, however you have that knowledge transfer is your 10%. That's of the whole 100% of the capability uplift. Or moving towards competency, I think, is the best way to put this. So our training course is obviously the 10%. However, the 20% is your management in your organization sitting with you, and then coaching and encouraging you to take what you've learned and giving you the opportunity to take what you've learned in that 10% and apply it into the workplace. So that 20% is critical, because if you don't have a supportive management hierarchy, that 10% goes out the window very quickly and you forget it. It takes about 3.5 weeks and you've forgotten it anyway. So you need that 20%. And then the 70% is workplace implementation. It's where you're actually pragmatically doing it in the workplace, which when you combine all three, you get confidence. And if you've got confidence and skills, you've got competence. And that's what we strive for, is ensuring that you're actually competent in the workplace with the tools and the knowledge. So therefore, we offer the 10, and then we're happy to coach your coaches, but it's all about this, the 70%. We will come into the workplace and work with you and show you how it's done and help you to do it. And that way you embed the knowledge.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Thanks, Craig. Really good. Apologies for the dings. Emails coming through. Why don't we open up? Are you happy to take some questions?
Yeah, sure.
We've got some good stuff going on in the chat that I've been half looking at. Would anyone like to kick us off with questions for Craig? Tracy had some good points before, if she's still
Hello.
with us.
I'm here.
Oh, hi Tracy, thanks.
I just wanted to ask, because everybody sort of writes their, or tends to, especially if you're in government, writes your business plan with the intention of wanting the benefit, and that's right at the beginning. And then you get in, and then it's all about, can you actually deliver it? Can you deliver it within the money? Usually, it's yours. Usually about don't overspend, but don't underspend either, is it? Otherwise, it makes you look like you planned poorly. So even if you do underspend, sometimes that's not well recognised. But my question was more about when the benefit does come and you're handing over, what if it's not straight away? What if it's got a tail? What if it's not going to be, that benefit isn't actually going to be realised for perhaps 6 months or even longer? And also, sort of part two of that is, what if there's other effects on that benefit? Have you sort of solved that and measured that and showed the impact of whatever change you've made?
So that's it's an excellent observation, because it's very common, and B, it's a great question because I have an answer. So I mentioned and alluded to this thing called the benefits realization plan, which is a work in progress all the way up to the point where you hand something over. Now, I don't want to, so this can work in any environment, Agile, waterfall, doesn't matter. What that benefits realization plan has is it has a timeline of expected benefit realization, and we point towards a trigger of an action, that something will drop, something will happen, something will be delivered, there will be a survey out to your customers, whatever the case may be. There's a trigger at which, sometime in the future, at which point you are expecting your benefit to start to be realizable because of that trigger. And you build this into a schedule. It's literally, it's like a Gantt chart. It's a timeline of benefits realization into the future. Very seldom will you actually get the benefit dropping the minute you hand over the project, or the minute the product is delivered or designed, delivered, and implemented. There's a curve. There's a learning curve which very often brings about disbenefits, again, which gets built into this realization plan. So it's a great question because it shows the importance of understanding the discipline of benefits realization management and the work that has to go in to managing expectations. Does that answer your question?
Craig, it's Peter here again, just following on from that good answer. Sort of made the observation in the chat online that benefits tracking and reporting appears to be one of the hardest, if not the hardest thing to do in a benefits framework, and almost to avoid the noise of restructures or resignations on new appointments and sort of hold the project as still hopefully having a value at a point in time. I'm sort of interested in if you've got any great case studies or shining lights in your experience about where organisations have tracked and reported benefits well.
Yeah, I've got more of where they haven't, but something I have managed to do. Something I have managed to do is with the benefits tracking and reporting. Once you understand or you've aligned the benefits owners, and there are multiple owners, they are the people who are accountable to the business for the value that this new initiative will bring, right? So therefore they're accountable to report on a return on investment to the executives on an ongoing basis. Once you've understood that, a key to the benefits realization reporting, tracking and reporting is to not create new reports. It's to utilize the systems that you have in place to develop a process where you get the reports coming out of the system, if possible, in a systematic manner. However, the people that are the benefit owners, you don't put a name to that role, as you wouldn't in any other project or program discipline. You create a role within the organization that's accountable. So as I said, something I've done previously is that role had certain accountabilities attached to it. The person who was in that role left the organization, which I think is, Peter, alluding to your question. What we made sure of was the replacement person that came in to fill this role. It was crystal clear in the job description and the roles and responsibilities that they were accountable for measuring and tracking the benefits of XYZ program. And it was part of the roles and responsibilities and KPIs of the new role. So obviously we had a fairly lengthy conversation with HR numerous times to ensure that we could encapsulate this specific requirement and responsibility and accountability into the role. It was fairly granular. So therefore, at least the person that was being hired into the role knew that this was part of their job description. And we managed to get HR across the line to be able to do that. And it was a substantial program. There was a lot at stake from a benefits perspective because they were reporting to the CFO. Therefore, the CFO was very happy to guide HR down the path of making sure that it was built into their job description. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so.
It does. Great. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah.
No problem.
I noticed a comment in the chat from Jose. Jose, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, would you like to just talk a little bit about the comment you made, which was around the challenges of changing people's thinking and some of the differences between benefits and outcomes? Because that resonated with me. It's something we come across an awful lot.
Yes. The problem that we have at the moment is benefits is pretty new to the organization. And if you look at all business cases that have been developed in the past and currently developing, when you ask for benefits, they would actually put outcomes instead of benefits. So going back to the person or the author or the business team and explain the benefits, the difference of benefits between outcomes is quite a challenge as well. And across the organization, because we will be experiencing a lot of those, I reckon, because the way we understand benefit is that it's the same as outcome, or the way we worded benefits is the same as outcome.
I would totally agree with you, and that was what I was alluding to earlier about there's a very the understanding of benefits management and the discipline thereof is very, very low, because an outcome is not a benefit. It absolutely is not. And more often than not, when you look at a business case, you're 100% correct, Jose. They stop at an outcome. Therefore, you need to upskill the business analysts to not allow the business to stop at an outcome. They need to be able to quiz and poke and delve deeper to go, well, I like that outcome. That outcome sounds fantastic. But what's in it for you if you get that outcome? At which point you start to see the smoke coming out of people's ears because you ask them to actually think. And there are certain tools that we have and we've developed, which are, when you see them, they're so simplistic. It's literally asking a bunch of questions like, yes, so what's in it for you? Yeah, can you quantify that? Where's your baseline? At which point they go, what's a baseline? Yeah, so I understand, Jose, exactly where you're coming from. And funny enough, what you just said is the very first thing that I found 7 years ago when I started my journey on this benefits management exploration, was the lack of understanding of the terminology, and it just stopped at outcome, which is totally incorrect.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a lot of
thank you.
A lot of work to fix that. But it's,
yes. So what we do in the portfolio office, we actually sit down with them and go through the outcome one by one and help them identify the benefits. Out of those outcomes. Yeah.
It's an educational piece to
it is, yeah.
change the understanding of where it is you need to get to at the business case. It's too late to find that stuff out later.
Yes, I agree.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jose. We have a hand. I think it's Puneet. Is that you, Puneet?
Yes, it's me, Louise.
in disguise.
Yeah, I was just going to add to what Craig was saying before. It's something Craig did on the program that we all worked on. And Craig, what you did, something different, and it's really working well now, is putting all the benefits in executives' KPIs. So they are accountable. So you know how you set up a lot of working groups before you hand it over to the program, and everyone was just fighting and not wanting to take the accountability. But because you built the framework in a way that they are not part of executive KPIs, people actually got on with it, because every time they go to a executive meeting, they are answerable in front of their peers and they don't want to look silly at that level. So it's something you did, but it's working really well for Sydney Trains.
I'm really happy to hear that, Puneet, because that was a very hard thing to do.
It was indeed. And it's built into their adoption KPIs. So they get reported every 6 months.
Yeah. Again, I'm so happy to hear that, because it was hard to do, but we saw the vision and the long-term goals, and we pushed it because we knew we had to get there.
Yeah, very hard. It was indeed very hard, and I still have people coming to me sometimes. I have left the program, by the way, but I still get emails. Or do you have the framework that Craig put together? Did he email you before he left?
Yeah, I still have the scars from that program.
Yeah.
Craig had a full head of hair at the beginning of that program.
Yeah, it's moved down.
Thanks, Puneet, and great feedback. Thank you. We've got time for a couple more questions. Has anybody got anything else they'd like, comments or questions?
Craig, it's Darren here. I think what you've been talking about really resonates with me. We're early in rolling out our benefits realisation framework, management framework across the bank, and very similar challenges there as well. I think one of the big ones, which is about accountability and about that benefits owner, that key role from a governance perspective. And quite often, in fact, I think most of the time, I think that role resides within the business. So we can be really great from a delivery perspective, whether it be at a project, program or portfolio level, but it really hinges upon the accountability of the business. And I think what Puneet was just talking about was the executive KPIs is about putting that level of accountability in that business thing. So it's about that changing in that space that I think is really key to making it stick. I think is probably just an observation.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it also depends on the kind of value that you expect to obtain from your business case. Having conversations with a number of the big four banks a couple of years ago, in essence, they looked at me rather quizzically when I said, but there's more to the value than money. And talking to a bank, they just go, is there? And we really struggled to get across the value of the softer benefits of the efficiency gains. All they cared about, like literally we were told to go away because no, we've got our financial benefits built in, we don't care about anything else, which I thought was really short-sighted. But that was a number of years ago. I do believe it's changed.
Yeah, so we're building in sort of the value drivers and the metrics to support that, all of the customer experience and the NPSs and the other things there as well. But again, you have to build these metrics from the ground up. So yeah.
100%. And it's got ground up, i.e. pre-business case leading into business case.
Yep.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you.
No worries.
Any final comments or questions? I don't see anyone with a hand up. Pete, did you have anything that you wanted to add before we close the session?
Oh, look, I guess just a conversation starter for Craig to elaborate on around other values of benefits frameworks in terms of also potentially pausing or killing projects that no longer have the required benefits profile or have a lower benefits profile than other initiatives in the portfolio. I guess just a general question for Craig about, your experience in that area, and have you seen organisations that have also been able to get to that level of maturity?
Yes, again, great question, because I have a real answer to it. One of the first things I do now is I ask to see the packs, the reporting packs of a project or a program that is reporting success. And I add a question to that pack when reporting to the exec. And the question is, are we still on track to meet the benefits that we sought to achieve? Instead of talking about time, cost, scope as usual, and we then go to the change management tools. Now, this is not organizational change, this is change control. And we build benefits into the change management tools as well, so that when you put forward a change, you have to articulate your expectations of how the benefits, as per the business case, will be affected because of this change, not just time, cost, scope. So you start to bring it front and center. And the conversation around the benefits starts to then become a real discussion when talking about postponing a project, killing a project, pumping in revenue to to bring forward the timeline to get the benefit earlier, etc. It actually becomes currency. And unless you've done a well thought out, well articulated benefits realization plan, or at least business case with the benefits in it, you can't have those conversations because we get into delivery mode. And when you're in delivery mode, it becomes triple constraints. And we forget about the benefit, or we don't even forget about them, we just ignore them. So if you can make the benefits the first question, not the last question, then yeah, you're definitely you're starting to talk about prioritization, portfolios, etc.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I guess in my experience as well, Craig, I've heard too many times where project teams have completed the business case really as the dash for cash. So once they've got the cash, then they can just get on with what they perceive to be the real work, which is just getting the project done without necessarily keeping an eye back on why we're doing this in the first place.
Yeah, which is why 90% of business cases are written anyway, which makes them pathetic in the first instance.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Pete. And thank you very much, Craig, for your wisdom and your insights today. We're just about out of time, and I know people are dashing off to 1 o'clock meetings. Just a couple of reminders. So we have recorded this session, and we will make it available to you guys. We'll tidy up the recording and get that out to you. Watch out for an email from us. As we mentioned, we'll see what interest there is for our course. Also very keen to have any feedback on what other topics you might be interested in for future events. One of the reasons we're doing events now is because we can't physically get close to our community. Usually at this time of the year, we're doing conferences. That can't happen now. So obviously we're going to do it in a virtual way. And the final thing, and I know some of you have already registered for the symposium, but we are running a PMO leadership symposium. We've got a great program of events. It's a whole day virtual session running on the 25th. And please see the website if that's something that might be of interest to you. And thank you all very much for taking an hour out of your day for yet more screen time. We really appreciate it. Thanks, folks.